The road runs 13 miles through Manhattan, 2 miles through the Bronx, and then another 13 miles through Westchester County, where it crosses the village of Sleepy Hollow and becomes Albany Post Road. It is the oldest and longest north-south thoroughfare in New York City. But its name is more than just a street. It's an entire industry. Today, on 5-Minute Trivia, we're talking about Broadway.
We choose to go to the moon.
Right now, you like me.
Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
Welcome to 5-Minute Trivia, where we're making the world smarter 5 minutes at a time. I'm your host, R.M. Zubairi. Hey, they're playing our song, which we are not legally permitted to sing without paying someone a lot of money. In case you don't recognize it, that was on Broadway, which is a song about a street that's so much more than a street. I mean, on what other street is there always magic in the air? On what other street will you have to catch a bus home if you're not a star? And that's what Broadway is. A street, an idea, a ticket to stardom. It wasn't always that way. Certainly the Native American tribe that lived along the east bank of the Hudson River did not have cat people and giant video billboards on their minds when they carved a trail into the swampland of Manhattan Island. Back then, it was called the Wickquasgeck Trail, named after the tribe that blazed it. It covered most of Manhattan Island and the Bronx, and it was their territory. It was their hunting ground. Then, the Dutch showed up. In the early 17th century, the Dutch West India Company established a fort on the southern tip of Manhattan that would eventually become the settlement of New Amsterdam. Now, it's become a bit of history that the Dutch bought Manhattan for basically peanuts from the local tribe. $24 worth of beads and trinkets is what most of us learned in school. That price is probably accurate, not accounting for the 400 years of inflation, but keep in mind that this works out to be more expensive per acre than both the Louisiana Purchase and Alaska. Also, there's some evidence that the Dutch bought Manhattan from people who didn't live there and may not have owned it in the first place. So, if anything, the Dutch got duped. Anyway, they saw the Wickquasgeck Trail and expanded on it. They widened it and named it Herenstraat, which means Gentleman's Street in Dutch. It was their main street. In 1664, the English military conquered New Amsterdam and renamed it New York, after James II, who was the Duke of York and Albany at the time. They saw this nice broad street and called it Broadway Street. Okay, so that's how we got Broadway. But how did we get, Broadway? So first, a little geography. When we talk about the Broadway of Hamilton and Wicked, we're talking about that area of Midtown Manhattan called the Theater District. It's an area about 14 blocks long and 2 blocks wide and includes Times Square. Times Square is where Broadway, 42nd Street, and 7th Avenue converge. Why is it called Times Square? Well, it used to be called Longacre Square and changed its name after the New York Times moved their headquarters there in 1904. In the 18th and early 19th century, this area was basically farmland. All of the theater action in New York City happened in Lower Manhattan. These theaters were technically on Broadway, the street, but not in today's theater district. Theaters started moving uptown in the mid-1850s after 42nd Street was officially opened. The land was cheaper and the air was cleaner. In 1899, a man named Oscar Hammerstein built the Victoria Theater on West 42nd Street. He made his fortune in cigars, and he loved opera, and he was willing to spend everything he had if that's what it took. And apparently, that's what it took, because he opened numerous opera houses, financed lavish productions, and lost all his money in doing so. His theaters failed, he went bankrupt, and the Metropolitan Opera literally paid him more than $1 million if he would agree never to produce opera in New York City for what would end up being the rest of his life. But by then, the seed was planted. Theaters started opening up left and right. His grandson, Oscar Hammerstein II, unveiled his first Broadway musical in 1920. It was called Always You. His most famous collaboration was with composer Richard Rodgers. Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote Oklahoma, The Sound of Music, South Pacific, The King and I, and a bunch of other famous plays. He would go on to win Oscars, Grammys, Tonys, and the Pulitzer Prize. By the 1920s, electricity had arrived, and theater owners were lighting up their billboards with electric lights. But they couldn't use colored bulbs because they didn't last. They had to use white ones, which is how Broadway got its most famous nickname, the Great White Way. Today, Broadway is a term that refers to theaters of at least 500 seats located in the theater district of Midtown Manhattan. 41 theaters meet that designation, but only 3 of them are on Broadway itself. If you hear the term off-Broadway, that's not talking about the street so much as it refers to the seating capacity. 100 to 499 seats is off-Broadway, and fewer than 100 is considered off-Broadway. Off-Broadway is considered more daring and experimental, and plenty of mega-successful shows like Hamilton, The Chorus Line, and Hair got their start off-Broadway. They say that New York is the city that never sleeps, and no single street epitomizes that ethos more than Broadway. From its origins as a Native American trail to the center of American theater, Broadway never slept. That's our show for this week. Join us next time, and thanks for listening.